I'm Joel, and I'm one of the pilots here at the lodge. Jeannie and George are my parents. I spend most of my time in the planes, but when I do get some time off, I generally spend it fishing, and so they thought it'd be best if I talked to you guys for a couple minutes about fishing techniques, what we have to offer up here in the lakes, as well as the type of equipment that you guys are wanting to bring up with you. Depending on which lake you're going into, we've got all sorts of species. We've got generally walleye is the big one, and then pike, perch, bass, whitefish, and ciscos are the fish that we offer up here. And springtime versus summertime fishing for all of the species are going to be a little bit different. Let's start with springtime. For spring pike, the pike are in the weeds spawning. Generally, the best way to go after pike in the springtime is with slow-moving rapellas or larger spoons casting in on the edge of the weed beds. If you get up here early enough, generally the middle of May, you can see the pike up in the weeds, and they are generally with their backs on the top of the water spawning. The walleye in the springtime, generally the easiest place to find walleye in the springtime is below a set of rapids. They go up into the rapids to spawn, and they stay below the rapids. In the pool is basically a food collection site for them, so it gives them kind of a place to relax before they head out into the lake and have to do some real work to find some food. In the springtime, if I'm fishing for walleye, generally I like to use a jig and a minnow. So basically for springtime fishing, what I would recommend that you bring up an assorted box of jig heads, all different colors and different sizes, between an 1/8 ounce and a 1/2 ounce jig head, with rubber tails, all different colors. My favorite colors are white and yellow, and hot pink seems to be a really big producer for us. Other times I've seen chartreuse as the color, other times I've seen black as the color. And what I would say is that bring a lot of colors and experiment with it. More towards the summer is really when the bass are starting to get really productive, as well as the perch. If you're bass fishing towards the middle of the summer, you know, any of your topwater spinner baits are going to be good for bass, as well as your topwater poppers, little spoons. My favorite all-time bass lure for bass is a straight hook with a chunk of worm on it and a slip sinker. I always found that to be the ultimate bass lure, even when everything else wasn't working. Likewise, I use the same thing a lot of time for walleye or perch. It's been commercialized. They call it a Lindy rig. So you can actually buy it, you don't have to make it yourself. Generally this time of year the perch are schooling up in the weed beds, so you can find them in the weeds multiple different ways. Generally you're trolling until you find the school, and then once you find the school you're stopping and you're going to sit and fish them in the school for a while. A bobber with a chunk of worm down the line, 1.5 feet, 2 feet down the line works well. Also, anything that you'd use for crappie fishing would work well, like 1/32 ounce jig head with a rubber tail and a chunk of worm works excellent for perch this time of year. I've seen a lot of guys go with a small beetle spin, like a 1/16 ounce beetle spin with a chunk of worm, and that works really well for perch this time of year. For walleye this time of year, I'm kind of looking at a little bit different structure than in the spring. And although the inlets are productive in the summertime, generally this time of year I'm fishing weed beds and I'm fishing rock pile reefs because that's where the food is at for the walleye. Now, when I'm talking about weed beds, I'm talking about either the pencil reeds or I'm talking about the cabbage weeds that are coming up. And I'm not talking directly in the weeds. That would be more where the perch and the small pike would be found. I'm talking more along the edge of the weed line is where I'm looking for walleye this time of year. Trolling, rapellas, different colors work, or a jig head and a minnow, or a jig head and a worm. I really like a beetle spin myself.